Hello everyone, and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. This is going to be episode 1 of a new series that I'm going to be starting here on my channel to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to improve your Crucible game. Now, before we get into all this, I do want to say that I don't consider myself to be a Crucible god. I'm not going to be winning any 1v1s against Incooch anytime soon, but typically when I go into a Crucible match, I'm going to have a KD of at least about 1.3 to 1.5 every single time. Now, just like everybody else, I'm going to have my off matches. I'm going to have my shit matches where I'm going to go like 0.5, but for the most part, my KD stays positive. Now, over the past 6 months, since incorporating these tips and tricks into my Crucible playing, I have managed to bring my KD from a 0.45 overall to a 0.90 overall. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh, well, you're still negative, you're shitty. Well, it's because it used to be a fucking 0.45, so it's going to take me a while to make up all the ground that I've kind of buried myself under with my previous Crucible playing. Now, I don't like the Crucible, but I don't like being bad at stuff. So even if I don't like it, I'm going to be good at it if I don't like it, if that makes sense. I'm going to try to figure out how to make myself better at it. So in this video, we're going to be talking about basics. Before you even go into a Crucible match, these are some things that you need to take into account. All right, so we're going to start over here on the settings page. You can see down here on controller behavior, I have my controller vibration set to off. I definitely recommend this if you're going to be trying to improve your Crucible game. The reason being is with flinch the way that it is in this game, it's already hard enough with a lot of weapons to keep your sights on the target. Now, if in addition to the flinch in the game, if your controller is vibrating because you're taking enemy fire, it's going to be even more difficult for you to maintain a headshot or maintain reticle stickiness on an enemy while your controller's vibrating and your sights in game are flinching. It takes a little while to get used to the controller vibration. You really have to pay attention to your HUD. When I say your HUD, I don't mean the minimap. I mean when you're taking enemy fire, you have those little red arrows that pop up on your screen pointing in the direction that the enemy fire is coming from. You need to pay a little bit more attention to those so that when you do start getting shot at, you can identify where it's coming from and be able to identify it quickly enough to react. So controller vibration off, that is going to be the first thing that we do. The second thing that I would recommend is this auto-lock centering. What this does is after a few seconds, it will bring your sight, like say that I have this thing down here, after a few seconds, the game will automatically put it back in the middle of the screen. I do not recommend this whatsoever for the simple fact that, you know, if you're running, if you're shooting at somebody, let's say that your stick is, you know, in a neutral position, or you take your finger off your stick for a second to go push A or B or switch weapons or reload or whatever the case may be, the game will automatically center and throw off your aim. So I keep this off, no question about it. So next up, we're going to be talking about look controls, and that is going to be your look sensitivity. Now, a lot of people go into the Crucible or any type of competitive PvP and they say, oh, I'm going to be super duper 360, no scope, quick shot, backstab, crispy grilled snipe with chicken and a side of potato salad, or whatever the fuck y'all say. I don't understand any of it. But a lot of people automatically want to set their sensitivity to 10. And 99% of the time, you are not going to need your sensitivity at 10. In fact, the higher your sensitivity is, the better chance that you're going to miss your shot, unless you are just like hopped up on Adderall and you have the reaction time of a fucking squirrel that, I don't know, is sitting in your front yard or something. Like, it's not going to help you is what I'm saying. Now, the way that you find the right sensitivity for you is you need to obviously try each one. I would say start with 2 and go into a couple of Crucible matches. I recommend Rumble because typically Rumble enemies come from all directions as opposed to just one spawn. So this is going to require you to turn around a lot, look behind you because you're going to be getting flanked a lot more. So start with 2 and use it for a few days. Don't just use it for one match and be like, oh, I don't like that, I'm going to change. No, use it for a few days. Honestly, I would say use it for about a week. You know, seriously, like go into at least 10 or 15 matches at this sensitivity and see how it feels. Like really get a feel for it. After that 10 or 15 matches, after you have a really good feel for it and you have experienced this sensitivity in multiple scenarios, then bump it up another 2, go to 4. Do the same thing, bump it up to 6, go to 6. Do the same thing, bump it up to 8. And as you progress, you will start noticing, oh, well, I'm sitting at 8 right now. I did it a lot better when I was at 6. And then you can start going down. So once you realize that the sensitivity is too high and you need to lower your sensitivity, then instead of going back from 8 to 6, go from 8 to 7. Then go from 7 to 5, 5 to 3, and down to 1, or however much you need to. Like, you just want to kind of try all this out. Honestly, for you to find the perfect sensitivity for you in Crucible, it's going to take you about a month of trial and error, because you can't just play one match at sensitivity 2 and be like, oh, this is too slow, I can't do this. You really need to get used to it. I used to play in the Crucible with my sensitivity up to 8, and I slowly brought it down, and now 4 is my absolute sweet spot. If I go lower than 4, it's too slow. If I go higher than 4, it's too fast. I miss my shots either way. So 4 is my sweet spot. Don't go set yours on 4 just because I do it. What works for me might not work for you. So that's trial and error. You're just going to have to figure out which sensitivity works best for you. So the next thing that we're going to talk about in the theme of what works best for you is your weapons. Now, a lot of people will say, and myself included, will say, the Palindrome is a fucking amazing hand cannon. A lot of people will say that the Mida Multi-Tool is a great PvP scout rifle. A lot of people will say that Bad Juju is a really good PvP pulse rifle. All of these are based on personal preference. Excuse me. Now, for me, personally, I've never been good with hand cannons in the Crucible until the Palindrome. With the Palindrome, I can consistently go positive with this weapon. Now, this is the first hand cannon in the history of Crucible that I've ever been able to go positive with. The reason that I'm able to go positive with this hand cannon is because I practice with it constantly. This is the only hand cannon that I used. I got a really good feel for it, and because of that, I was able to adapt to it and do good with it. Other than that, I stuck with the Bad Juju archetype pulse rifles. I used a Hawksaw. I don't have one on my character at the moment, but it's pretty much the same archetype as Bad Juju in terms of rate of fire and impact, and on my Hawksaw I have max stability. Now, perks absolutely come into play when you're talking about PvP weapons. For example, the Palindrome here has rangefinder, rifle barrel, mulligan, or spray and play. All of these are fairly decent in Crucible. Rangefinder is always going to be good. You want to get as much range as you can. Palindrome has really good base range for a hand cannon, so adding rangefinder to that is going to make you turn this weapon into a close to medium range weapon. It's going to make you turn that into a medium to longer range weapon. So it's definitely good in Crucible. This gives you more versatility on certain maps. Like, let's say that you go to Rusted Lands, where you're going to have a lot of close quarters engagements if you avoid the sniper alleys, and you switch that up and you go to a map like, say, Shores of Time, where you're going to have mostly long-range engagements. I can use this weapon on both of those, whereas something like the Bad Juju, I can use it on the close-range maps, but I can't use it on the long-range maps. So what you want to do is you want to find that one weapon with the right set of perks that you can use in both long, medium, and short range. So you want something that you can kill up close if you have somebody rushing with a shotgun. You want something that you can kill at a medium range, and you want something that you can kill with a kill at scout rifle range, which is longer range, so that no matter what your enemy is using, you can have a counter for it. You have to remember that every single person in the Crucible has their own weapons with their own perks with their own playstyle. So if you're a scout rifle guy and you like to hang back and play from a distance, well, there's a guy running around with a shotgun. Now all of a sudden you're in a situation. This scout rifle's not going to do you much good when somebody's running at you with fucking Blink and a shotgun, or Juggernaut and a shotgun. You're not going to be able to get enough shots into them in a certain amount of time. Alternatively, you want your primary and your segment each other. So what I mean by that is, let's say that I'm running the Burning Eye here. Let's say, I wouldn't use this in Crucible, by the way. I don't like this in Crucible. But this is going to be a more medium to long range scout rifle, right? So if I'm running this, I already have medium to long range covered. I don't necessarily need to have a sniper rifle on. I will be much better off having a shotgun or a fusion rifle on. That way I have long range covered and medium range covered, and then I can have something close range covered as well. So always keep that in mind when you're picking your Crucible weapons. You want something that fills in the gap of what the other one has. Now, if I'm running something like the Palindrome, I'm typically going to use this more close to medium range. So for something like this, I will keep on a sniper because this is going to make it to where I'm covered in close and medium range, and I have my long range engagements covered as well. So that's always something to keep in mind. You want your primary and your secondary to complement one another and not necessarily do the same thing. Now, on the same subject of your weapons and picking all your perks, you also want to pick the right armor set and the right subclass. Now, for me, I like to run Gunslinger. Now, I like to run Gunslinger because its super allows me to get kills at a distance, whereas something like, say, Blade Dancer is going to make me have to get right up on somebody, and if I want a multi-kill, then I have to time it just right. For me, Blade Dancer is really, really good in Crucible if you're good at using it. I'm not good at using it, so I don't touch it. Same goes for Night Stalker. I've seen a lot of people that get a lot of kills with Night Stalker in Crucible. It is not for me. I'm not good with it, so I don't use it. I stick to Gunslinger because Gunslinger is what I am good at. And that's what you have to do too. You don't want to go in there using Night Stalker just because everybody else is using Night Stalker. You don't want to go in there using Blade Dancer just because Blade Dancer is the hot thing right now. You use the subclass that works for you, and who cares what anybody else says. I can sit here right now and tell you forever that Gunslinger is the best fucking subclass in Crucible for hunters, and in the comments of this video, I will have so many people say, "You're fucking stupid, Gunslinger sucks. Fucking Blade Dancer outclasses Sunsinger or Gunslinger more than any other class in the thing." And then somebody will comment on that comment and call that Blade Dancer guy a dumbass and say that Night Stalker outclasses Blade Dancer. It's all open to interpretation, and it's all catered to your playstyle. So typically what you want to look at here is Gunslinger is going to be your medium to long range subclass. Blade Dancer is going to be your up-close and personal subclass, and Night Stalker is going to be that in-between subclass. You're not going to try to get somebody from across the fucking map with your bow and arrow. I mean, it can be done, yes, but ideally you're not going to want to do it. So keep that in mind. I typically try to keep as much space between me and the enemies as possible because shotguns are so fucking ridiculous right now. So because of that, Gunslinger is going to be my go-to. Now, as far as exotics, you want to complement your subclass as much as you can. Now, as it stands right now, for the Gunslinger, in my opinion, there are only two useful exotics for the Gunslinger subclass. That is going to be Acleophage Symbiote, which gives you an additional shot to your golden gun. This is good on matches like Control or Rift, where you're going to have a lot of enemies grouped up together, because getting that additional shot is also going to make your Gunslinger, or your golden gun burn out quicker. So you're going to want to pop this when there's a lot of enemies around and you can get those shots off really quickly. I use this from time to time, but most of the time my go-to exotic for PvP is going to be the Young Ahamkara's Spine. This is because it gives me an additional trip mine grenade. 2 grenades are always better than 1. Then I put on the Knife Juggler perk, or not Knife Juggler, but Gambler's Dagger perk, and I have 2 melees and 2 grenades plus my super. It is a great fucking build. Trust me. Now, like I said earlier, don't go in and use this subclass with this build just because I said it's good. You're going to have to try these things out. You're going to have to go in there with a Palindrome, play a few matches, see how you do. If you do bad, switch to the Mida. If you do bad, switch to Bad Juju. If you do bad, switch to the Cockadus. If you do bad, you get the idea. You have to keep switching and keep trying out different weapons until you find that one weapon, that one fucking weapon that has the right perks for your playstyle and has the right range for your playstyle. Now, as far as artifacts go, this is another very important thing. There's a lot of really useful artifacts that are going to improve your game in the Crucible. Me personally, I prefer Memory of Gillian. Grants a detailed radar persist while aiming down sights with primary. This is fantastic to have because I can hard scope, like if I know somebody's around the corner, I know somebody's taking damage because I was shooting at them and they're trying to get their health up. I'm going to sit there with my sights locked on that area and wait for these guys to come around the corner after they get their health back up, and I'm going to have first shot on them because I'm already aiming in. With this artifact, this is going to allow me to hard scope them and also keep an eye out for flanks. So being flanked in the Crucible is one of the things that get you killed the absolute most. Somebody sneaking up behind you while you're hard scoping with snipers, hard scoping with primaries, whatever the case may be. This negates all of that with the exception of the sniper because it doesn't work with snipers. So with snipers, what I'll do is I'll aim down sights for about 3 seconds, and then I will quickly drop my sights, look at my radar, and pull my sights back up if I'm going to be hard scoping an enemy. If I know somebody's hiding around a corner and I'm waiting for them to come out, that's how I'll play that. But yeah, great artifact to have. There's a lot of really good ones here. Memory of Yolder takes away your sprint cooldown. That's definitely good in Crucible. Lose your super, but gain an extra grenade and melee. I've seen a lot of people use this, all right? And this brings me back to what I just said a few seconds ago about knowing your gear and complementing your subclass. I saw somebody using this in Crucible the other day. They were using this, and the way that they had their subclass built, they were using it like I did. They had Ahamkara and Gambler's Dagger, so they already had 2 grenades and 2 melees, and they were just basically saying, fuck your super. Like, I don't want to use my super. They literally wasted an artifact slot when you could have used something much better. You know, like when your super is full, nearby allies charge their super faster, remove sprint cooldown, use your radar. It doesn't make sense. Pick the right subclass. If you're using this, obviously you do not need to use Knucklehead Radar on your Hunter. If you're using this, then obviously you do not need to use Ahamkara's Spine. Find something else that is going to, complement your subclass. Picking your gear is going to be the most important thing that you can do. Now, as far as your stats, I typically, for Crucible, I try to get max discipline, so I get that grenade back every 25 seconds. And second to that, I'm going to try to get my strength up to at least tier 3. I'm not really too concerned with intellect, since in the Crucible, if you can string together a couple of quick kills, 5 or 6, then your super is probably going to be charged pretty quickly, so you don't really need to worry about that 4 minutes and 20-second cooldown. It's not going to take that long as you're getting kills. So I typically don't run with very high intellect. I try to make sure that this is maxed and this is at least tier 3, because I do like to get my melee back quicker. And the last tip that I'm going to leave you guys with before we end this video is practice. Now, I'm not saying go into the Crucible and just get fucking annihilated, because you're trying to get better, you're trying new gear out and all that stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying. One of the reasons that I've been able to do so good with the Palindrome in the Crucible is because I use this everywhere. I go into Archon's Forge with this, and I use this as my primary. I go into the Prison of Elders, for example, and I use this as my primary. I use this all the time in PvE, and because of that, I know how this weapon feels. I know how this weapon handles. I know where I need to aim to guarantee a headshot. I know how many shots it takes. I know how to use this weapon because I have used it so many times in PvE. Now, granted, PvE and PvP are going to feel a little bit different, because the hitboxes for the headshots and all that stuff are going to be much different on a Guardian than something like, say, a Dreg. But what I've come to find is the Fallen Splicer Vandals, they actually register their headshots a lot like the Crucible, or a lot like Guardians in Crucible. So go into the Plague Lands, go do some patrols, go do Archon's Forge, and just try to land headshots on every single one of those Devil Splicers that spawns in there, and it's going to give you a great feel for whatever weapon that you're wanting to use in Crucible. So I would definitely recommend that. Same can be said for your specials. I mean, learn how to rush, learn how to flank if you're going to be shotguns, learn how to pre-charge before you go around a corner if you're going to be running fusion rifles, learn how to, I'm not going to say quick scope because that's impractical most of the time in this game, but, learn how to use your snipers, learn how to balance those sights, look for areas of the map where you can know where the head's going to be when a Guardian comes around the corner. A good example of this would be, I forget the name of the map, Pantheon. Pantheon, that sniper alley there. Next time you're in that sniper alley and you're trying to hard scope down there where a Waterfall Heavy is, I want you to look straight down the other end. There is a line on both sides on the wall that if you put your sights on that line, when somebody comes around that corner, if they're standing, that is completely head level. You will be automatically on their sights, and you will win so many sniper battles by doing that. You know, it's little tips and tricks like this that are going to make you from an average Crucible player or a bad Crucible player to a good Crucible player or an above average Crucible player. And we're going to be covering all of this stuff throughout this series. So drop a comment in the box below. Let me know if you are into this series or if I'm just wasting my time here. But that is going to bring the first part of this series to an end. I'll try to get the other parts up as quickly as I can, but I can't make any promises as to when those are going to come out because, as you can see, I just recorded for 20 minutes without even realizing it. So there's definitely a lot to go over. I'm going to have to break it down. I'm going to try to do 3 tips per video, and we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's going to bring this video to an end, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you for watching. Take care, guys.